Welcome everyone. Today we'll learn how to use middlewares and action filters in .NET. So go to Visual Studio and create a new AS.NET Core Entity application. Define the name, select the .NET version, and create the project. A middleware is a piece of code added to the application pipeline. The AS.NET Core request processing pipeline changes multiple middlewares to handle HTTP requests and responses. AS.NET Core provides some built-in middlewares, such as authentication and authorization to log HTTP requests and responses, or even catch responses. So let's configure a built-in middleware in this minimal API to log incoming HTTP requests and responses. So open the Solution Explorer and go to the program.cs file. We'll enable this login built-in middleware. So we'll call builder.services.add HTTP login. And for the options, we'll pass an empty lambda expression to use the default configuration for the login middleware. And we need to add the middleware into the pipeline. So call app.useHTTP login. The second step to use this HTTP login middleware is go to the app settings development.json, and we'll add in the log level section a line to display the HTTP logs in the console. So we need to add this line. Go back, and in this get action endpoint, we'll return a list of fake products. So create a new dynamic list with one product. So we'll add two simple properties, the name and the price, and return an OK status code with this list of products. Now run the minimal API to test this login middleware. So we have the product displayed in the default endpoint. Go to the output console, and as you will see, we're logging the incoming HTTP request and response as well. So we have information about the request, the method, the scheme, and more information, and the logs about the response with the status code. Stop the minimal API. You can configure various built-in middlewares in an AS.NET Core application. I'll provide a Microsoft link in the description below. So basically, you can change multiple middlewares. For instance, if you want to add authentication and authorization into the application pipeline, or even catching for response, remember that the order of the middlewares into the application pipeline matters because they are executed sequentially. So let's remove these built-in middlewares. I'll provide a link in which you can configure each built-in middleware. You can also write a custom middleware and add it into the application pipeline. So let's create a global exception middleware for this application. Let's go to the Solution Explorer and create a new class called Global Exception Middleware. One way to add a middleware is to use the iMiddleware interface and implement this interface with this invoke async method. And basically we can handle any exception from this application. So let's add a simple try catch statement. So in the try block, you can call the next pipeline to execute. You pass the context. So in the catch block, you can handle the exceptions. So let's log the exception message. We can apply dependency injection. So we'll log the exception message. Let's log an error by printing the message of the exception, and go to the program.cs file and enable this custom middleware. So we need to register this middleware through dependency injection. So let's call scope or lifetime and add the corresponding global exception middleware and add it into the application pipeline by using the use middleware function and pass the global exception middleware class as a generic type. So for this endpoint, we'll throw a new exception with a not found message. Let's run the minimal API to test this custom middleware. So as you will see in the output console, we're logging the exception message. Stop the application. In .NET 8, global exceptions can be handled using the iException handler interface. I have a video about this. I'll provide the link in the description below. A middleware is applied globally to all HTTP requests, while action filters can execute code before or after hitting an action, providing a more granular approach. Let's add a new filter in this minimal API endpoint. So go to the Solution Explorer and add a new class called TimeFilter. Implement the iEndpoint filter in this class at the corresponding method. And here we measure the time elapsed in milliseconds for the action. Okay, so create a new watch using the stopwatch class. Let's start the watch and we log this time filter when we start, before hitting an action and after processing the action. So add the iLogger interface of time filter, log information that this time filter has started. So create a new variable called action name, which will be the type of the time filter, that name. So I will use interpolation action name started. So we'll store the result of this action in this result variable, and then we'll stop the watch and log that this action name has finished. And finally, we'll return the result of the action. Now go to the program.cs file and add this filter in the endpoint. Let's comment it out in this section line, and here we'll call add endpoint filter. As a generic type, we'll pass the time filter, and that's it. Let's run the minimal API, go to the output console. So we're using this action filter in the minimal API endpoint. The time filter has started and then the time filter has finished. So let's close the minimal API, and I forgot to add the elapsed time in milliseconds. So call watch.elapsed milliseconds. Run again the API. As you will see, the time filter has finished in 8 milliseconds. So we're applying this action filter in the minimal API endpoint. Stop the application. Now we can change multiple filters in the same endpoint. So let's create a new action filter in this endpoint. We can add inline filters. So add a new inline endpoint filter to call the same function. So in this case, we'll create a new asynchronous lambda expression. I will define the two parameters, the context nets delegate. Let's log that this second filter has started. So use the global logger, second filter started. Then we'll get the result from the action by invoking the nets delegate. And finally, let's log that the second filter has finished and return the result. Let's run the minimal API. Go to the output console. As you will see, the time filter has started, is the first to execute due to the order that we defined. Then the second filter starts, the second filter has finished, and finally we have the result of the time filter that has finished in 30 milliseconds. So we can chain multiple filters in the same endpoint. Stop the application. Finally, action filters can access endpoint parameters and modify the response. So in the endpoint, add a new query parameter called name. And then from the inline filter, we'll access this parameter. So let's get the name by calling context.getArgument. This will be a string argument and select the first parameter. So we'll check if the length of this name is less than 3. We'll return a not found status code. Let's move this line about the login information when the second filter has started to the top and execute the API. Go to the output console. The query parameter is needed, so add the name query parameter with 2 characters. Execute. In the output console, the status code is a 404 not found, because remember that we're using the HTTP login built in Middleware. As you can see, the second filter has started, but the second log line doesn't show up. So we're returning directly a not found status code. Now let's add a third character. As you will see, we have the response from the endpoint. Go to the output console and we have a successful 200 status code. The second filter has finished successfully. So in this demo, we learned how to use middlewares and action filters in .NET.